I now call the February 8th, November 15th, 2018 regular meeting of the Ann Arbor Historic District Commission to order.
Okay. Yep, I'm Chris Chang. I'll be filling in for Joe Thatcher tonight, and I will take roll call. John Beeson, Max Coe,
Here.
Anna Epperson,
Here.
Evan Hall, Jessica Quignano, David Rockman,
Here.
and Robert White.
Here.
We have a quorum, and I would like to state that we need 3 out of 4 votes tonight to pass a motion. If it is a 2-2 type of vote, it will fail.
All right. Thank you. We welcome you to the regular meeting of the Ann Arbor Historic District Commission. I'd like to take a moment to explain the order of the meeting, specifically as it relates to the hearing of the applications on tonight's agenda. Each case will be called and will be heard, and we'll first hear the staff presentation and recommendations. Following this, the commissioners who serve on the review committee will present their observations and recommendations. At this point, the applicant will have an opportunity to step forward and provide any comments or additional information about the application. Once the applicant has finished, members of the public who wish to provide public comments on the current case may do so, while please noting the time limit of 3 minutes per person. Everyone who steps forward will need to state their name aloud for the record and sign in at the sheet located on the podium, and limit their comments to the application at hand. Following any public comment, the applicant may be called back to the podium to rebut any public comments and answer new questions that the commission may have. Once all questions have been answered, the hearing will be closed and the commission will deliberate the application, make a motion, have a discussion, and then vote. If any members of the public would like to speak to general preservation topics and not to any specific application, opportunity is provided during the audience participation, public commentary, following the approval of the agenda. Everyone who would like to address the commission may do so and will be asked to state their name aloud for the record and sign in at the front podium. Thank you so much for coming this evening. Your comments are valuable to the commission. I would like to now introduce the commissioners. Commissioner David Rockland. My name is Max Cope. Commissioner Robert White, and Commissioner Anna Epperson. Are there any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda? All right. Do we have any members of the public who would like to come forward and speak for the record? Okay. With that, I guess we will go on to our first hearing, 1301 Jones Drive rear addition deck replacement.
Okay. This is a single-story ranch home and is a non-contributing structure in the Broadway Historic District. The rear half of the lot is in the Traver Creek floodplain, and the proposed construction area is out of the floodplain. The site is located on the west side of Jones Drive, where Jones bends. The lot abuts city parkland on the rear and south sides, and Traver Creek is on the rear of the property line. The applicant seeks HDC approval to build a 336 square foot addition plus a deck on the rear of the house and add 3 8x10 parking spaces in the backyard. And you can see that for the first slide. This is the picture of the house from Plymouth Park and the driveway, which is to the left of the house. Again, you're looking northeast on Jones. The 2 adjacent houses were constructed circa 1855 and 1830. This is looking southeast on Jones towards Broadway. I can report that there is public parking along Broadway, but not along Jones. Here's the front door of the house that's facing Jones, off to the side of the driveway, I should say. Again, another picture. The garage was built before 1945 and is therefore a contributing structure. It requires repairs, but is large enough to hold a car. Again, this is a different angle of the garage, looking out towards Plymouth Road. This is where the proposed parking lot as shown on the plans. Again, these pictures are here for us to use during our discussion. This is the Traver Creek at the rear of the property line. Again, we're looking towards the rear of the house where the addition and the parking is proposed. This is the existing one-story house. And here's what's being proposed. You can see the new gravel parking or pervious paving to the rear of the 3 parking spaces, along with the addition on the rear of the house. The red dashed line is where the addition is, the extent of a 12 by 28 foot addition. This is the first floor. Again, this is the basement, same 12 by 28 addition in the red dashed line. Here you can see the elevations from the front to the rear of the house. We've also got a side elevation that we can reference. Again, an aerial type of view showing the red dashed line of the proposed addition to the rear of the house along with the deck. The Secretary of Interior Standards. Number 2, the historic character of a property will be retained and preserved. The removal of distinctive materials or alteration of features, spaces, and spatial relationships that characterize a property will be avoided. Number 9, new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment. And number 10, new additions and adjacent or related new construction will be undertaken in such a manner that, if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property will be unimpaired. SOI guidelines, building site, identify, retain, preserve, recommended, retaining the historic relationship between buildings, landscape features, and open space. Not recommended, removing or radically changing buildings and their features or site features which are important in defining the overall historic character of the building site so that, as a result, the character is diminished. District or neighborhood setting. Recommended, identifying, retaining, and preserving building and landscape features which are important in identifying the historic character of the setting. Not recommended, destroying the relationship between the buildings and landscape features within the setting by widening existing streets, changing landscape materials, or constructing inappropriately located new streets or parking. Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines. Guidelines for all additions, appropriate, limiting the size and scale of the addition in relationship to the historic building so that it does not diminish or visually overpower the building or the district. The addition's footprint should not exceed 1/2 of the original building's footprint or 1/2 of the original building's total floor area. Paved areas, appropriate, installing new parking areas which are compatible with the scale, proportion of yard area, and characteristics of the historic district behind buildings. Not appropriate, installing driveways or parking areas that are too wide or large for the building site and are out of character for the district. Landscape features, retaining historic relationships between buildings, landscape features, and open space. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant? Dave, did you have any questions?
Not at this time. Doesn't the applicant come up in that?
If we have questions.
If we have questions.
Yeah. Do you have questions? Yeah. Will the applicant please come forward, please? Thanks. I think we have a couple questions. Oh, shoot, you know what?
Yeah, I think you guys have discussions.
Yeah, sorry, one second, guys. You guys can be seated. I don't normally do this, so I kind of stumbled up a little bit. You can be seated for a minute. The review committee report. So Anna and myself were on the review committee, and Anna, do you have anything to say on the application?
No, I guess if we can go back to some of the images, just briefly. Maybe at the rear yard, just so that the other commissioners are aware that that one's okay. The addition is going to be covering up those 4 windows, as you see, so it'll come out, and then it will be flush with the rear of the house next door, just for I guess for the commissioners who were on the committee, just for their scale and reference. And then you'll be able to see in the application, I guess if we go back to the roof plan, but that gable roof is just going to come right off of that hip roof that slopes toward the front. So it won't be, and then the rest of that hip roof will just kind of come forward. So it won't be right up next to the adjacent property. But I think overall, there's a couple of questions with the application as we move forward, but I think overall it fits within the guidelines.
Yeah, that was a good observation that we made that needed a little explaining on site, was with how the gable roof ties in and the hip roof continues through the addition adjacent to the new roof structure. The gravel parking lot is, it's a pretty large area, and we kind of thought maybe the deck might be extending out a little bit too far into the backyard, but, planning will have to look at that as well, especially getting into the flood zone. Overall, I think the application is a pretty good application for what they have here to do. It meets the guidelines. So, okay, you guys can come. Yep. Please.
I'm George Weinhagen.
Thank you.
The designer of and the architect of record for the applicant. You don't need my address, right?
No, I don't. Just please sign in, though.
Thank you. Abraham?
There's a sign-up sheet.
Is it okay?
Name?
Maybe.
My names are on the drawings.
My name is Abraham Marsban. I'm the owner of the 1301 Jones Drive. And I can answer any questions with George's help. Yeah.
Do you have anything more to add to the application at this point?
First of all, we'd like to thank you for the site visit last Tuesday. It was very informative, both to us and I hope to you. Out of that discussion, we tried to show you what we were working with. There have been some discussions of additional retaining walls to protect the floodplain. We're working with DEQ on that issue. Thank you. Working with DEQ so that we are not changing the hydraulic aspects of the floodplain in any way.
Okay.
The way I've designed it, we've stayed totally out. You can see the flood on the site plan. The one line between us and the backyard is the elevation of the floodplain. So we're staying well above it. Now the basement floor is approximately at the floodplain level, so that's why we're working with DEQ to possibly resolve any overflow on that. Certainly if we get that's a 100-year storm. If we get a 500-year storm, don't even come and knock on the door, please. The garage, I have shown it a little off the property from work that we've done to find found iron pipes on the site. I believe that the garage actually does fit on the site, but it will be maintained and repaired to meet its existing structure. We're not changing the siding, the roof, or anything on that. Okay. As far as the back of the house, the front of the house will look exactly the same from Jones Drive. We're not changing the front elevations, roof pitch, or anything, or windows. So that's going to remain. People will not, once this is built and we can get it done, people will not realize that there's an addition behind it. Now, those people on Plymouth Road, hopefully they're going fast enough so they won't want to take a long look at it.
Yeah.
And Traver Creek is there, and it's flowing, and the city park is right off to the south of our property. It used to be 3 lots that were part of the original subdivision. There are some century trees on that, and everything will be maintained. We're not going to monkey with that. The driveway does fit on our property, and we'll be able to access the grade down to where we're proposing some pervious parking space. Now, whether it's gravel or whether it's paving blocks that are impervious, that we will make that decision with the building department.
Okay.
But it should not affect any historical elements to the house whatsoever. The retaining wall that we're planning to put in there, we do have some examples of material. It will be masonry, it will be frost protected, and it will be high enough with guardrail so people will not fall into that area.
Is the retaining wall in the?
It's not on the plan there, because frankly, I felt in the design, and I did a grading plan, a section through the property to show, kind of through the middle of the property, to show where the existing grade is and what we're talking about. And we actually meet it very nicely.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's some areas to the north which certainly have to be excavated for the addition, but they will not affect the final grade, to my knowledge.
Okay.
So we're really not changing anything. The wood deck, there's an existing 10-foot wood deck up there now. And I think you can concur that it's not in the greatest of conditions.
Yeah.
So it's going to be removed.
That's
And the 12-foot addition will bring us out to where the back line of the house next door is.
correct.
And I've cut down that deck to, I believe, 9 feet, reduced it in size. It will not be a cantilevered deck. It will be held up with proper footings and posts. And we're looking at either pervious paving, again, underneath that, or possibly just natural wood chip and natural materials and landscape the way it is right now. Well, not the way it is right now, because there's a lot of, shall we say, scrub material in there that needs to come out.
Yeah.
I believe that there is a egress window we would like to put on the north elevation of the wall, which I've shown on the drawing, to allow us to have egress out of a proposed bedroom interior. Yeah, okay, we're fast forwarding through there. Now, with that in mind, the drawings that you saw were, shall we say, somewhat preliminary because we were trying to meet the deadline for your commission.
There's
not
much changes though.
That's what, he's prompting me to remind you that we are not changing those drawings to any major extent.
Related to historical,
Yeah.
we're not changing.
And I believe Abraham has talked to Chris and to Jill since the site meeting to assure them of what we're doing. I believe that gives you the information you need from a historical district. We're not changing. We're maintaining the existing siding and using the existing siding, which isn't the existing siding for the building when it was built. It has portions of a Michigan basement, and it has some log joists in it. I mean, so it was built back in what I would consider to be the 1830s to the 1860s. The original portion of it. Then there were 2 additions, one on the north and one on the south, and that's what you see today. And then there was a covered porch, which I think was on the original house, but then they enclosed it and made it an atrium type of thing on the front of the house, which has been there. It was permitted, and you saw it in the site visit. That is not to change.
So the one thing that, on our plan, I don't see the location of the egress window. If you go to the basement layout.
In the basement layout, what I had done on the original drawing was show 3 sliding windows because of the view out there.
Correct.
We have decided that if we're going to have bedrooms in there, there's no sense to go to sliding door. I've left one sliding door. There is a man door, an egress door also.
Okay.
Yeah, what
Out
you
the
see on the
side.
plans.
So the
Yeah.
egress windows will be in lieu of your sliding glass doors?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
I thought
sir.
you were going to add an
No,
additional
no,
egress
they're
window
not
on
gonna be
another
added.
elevation.
We're not
Okay.
going clear glass along that whole elevation. We're going to just the one sliding door.
And that's okay in the new.
And
That was
two-
Jill's
two windows that
recommendation.
will match what's existing.
Okay. Yeah, I was just seeing,
Yes,
just
sir.
getting clarification that it wasn't being cut in on another section of the
No.
house. That wasn't.
No,
part
there
of
are
the
no
new addition.
cut-ins.
Okay.
What we showed you in the original plan is what we're working with.
I think one thing that might come up is when you do have your landscape plan, we do go through landscape plans through the Historic Commission. And I would talk to Jill about that next week before you guys start doing that. You may have to put in another application with the landscaping.
I will certainly work with Abraham on that. I will be involved with this project as it goes along.
Okay.
I'm not sure there's going to be major landscape changes.
Because
But
mostly
what
it's in
we're
the
going to
plan.
do-
Well, how tall's the retaining wall projected to be?
Well, the retaining wall will be a retaining wall. Now, whether we have vegetation in front of it or behind it, which we probably won't behind it, we will have
Yeah.
maybe some in front of
Yeah,
it.
Anywhere from 0 to 3 feet, yeah, that's.
Not higher than.
Not
Oh, no, it's not going to be tall
Okay.
grasses.
Yeah,
or
most of it
anything
is
else.
gonna be probably no retaining wall, in some section you
Yeah.
may come up to 2 feet. or
Well, the height of the retaining wall, not the vegetation.
The height of the retaining wall will probably be approximately 3 to 4 feet.
Okay.
With its foundations below it. And then, since we have more than 18 inches of fall, we
Yeah.
need to protect it. So we
Yep.
will probably have some form of railing in that also.
Okay, so I just make sure you bring that up with Jill, because it's not in this application.
she's-
No, it's not,
And
and
you may still have to.
it was
do
brought
another
up to
application.
Jill and I
We
believe
had
to
a
Chris
conversation
this
today.
morning.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
I just
Yes,
have
we will do that.
one clarification question. You said on the, instead of those sliders, 2 windows and 1 slider on that north elevation?
On that north elevation,
Can you show the north elevation?
Wanted to be clear.
yeah, right, the one that we submitted to you, as you could see, one of the windows is higher. I don't know why it happened that way. I was trying to get the drawings submitted. Right now, there will actually be 3 windows along there, 1 existing and 2 additional windows to allow proper light and ventilation for the rooms that are inside that.
And you're talking about on the basement level?
On the basement
lieu of-
level, there are no walls.
No walls.
That's a grade, what you see in grade there is at the middle of the site, not at the north end of the site. It's, the grade on the north end of the site actually comes higher and will probably allow, we will have no room for window, and we don't need any windows there. All our
So-
windows and light will be from the rear.
I think, so I'm talking about on the elevation on the bottom of the sheet where we have the sliders at the basement level? The
Only
sliding
one.
doors? Only
Only
one
one.
sliding door?
The slider that is most to the south. Also, the door, as you notice there underneath the deck, will no longer be there because we're putting the door in facing on the wall coming out, and the 12-foot wall coming out, so you will not have that opening there.
So what
Yeah, I'm
you
not
see
really-
there?
I'm not following, I'm not following
Oh.
what you're describing, so if there's,
Well, I don't have a stylus with me, but we can go back to the door, that door. Back. Have you got the plan?
Oh, yeah.
yeah, so the north elevation is the side that faces the backyard, which is where the,
No, well, we're having discussions on that.
okay, so in reference for this meeting, the north elevation as shown on the plans is the rear of the yard.
The rear of the, well.
So that's,
what I
and that's where the addition is going on the north elevation.
That's what I believe,
So-
and yes. You will only have that sliding door, you will have a single window, and then a double window there. And that's all, we need.
Okay, so for the other, did you guys understand
No.
that? So sliding door
Okay,
here,
Yeah,
Yeah.
instead of the 3 sliding doors.
a single window in the middle, and a double window on the
So
On the-
then where's the egress window that we were talking about earlier? Because I thought that was on the north.
Well,
But he's
on
replacing
the
the
north,
sliding
okay,
sliders
I-
with egress.
Somebody told me the north side was what I classify as the east side.
Oy. Okay, well, let's just use what's on the drawings,
Yeah.
just
Yes.
because
Yeah.
that's easier.
Looking
So
at, the only, on
just
the
show
drawing
on
you have-
Commissioner Epperson's plan where the
Let me-
egress
let me
is.
bring that. Can I- or-
Yeah, show.
You tell all of us would be
Yeah,
helpful.
I'll go down there.
Okay.
Maybe I'll find it. Well, here, let's give you one. I'm preparing the final drawings so that if we get approval tonight, he may be able to submit it to the building department. But, so with that in mind, there's an existing window in that wall now.
Okay.
We're putting 2 light windows there. One will have to be a little bigger to meet the egress,
Okay.
5 square feet.
Okay, and it's on the addition part of that
No, it
elevation?
isn't. It's actually in the new, it's in the existing house.
Okay.
The new addition is the back of a kitchen with no windows in it whatsoever.
I get it.
There's the
Yeah,
existing.
Okay, it's in the back of the house, though. It's in
Well,
the back
here's
of the existing
what
house.
I call the back of the house.
Right,
And there are
okay.
the new windows that I'm talking about with the only door. And there's no door there, it's in the side. So we're cleaning it up so
Show
that
me
there
where
aren't
the-
as many openings. on
Show
that
me
back
on
door.
that as well.
Yes, sir.
Real fast.
Yes, sir.
Because it feels like what we're looking at in our application isn't what you're doing.
Well,
Kind of. There's more, it seems like there's more items coming out.
you know what it's like in the field, right?
I do. I do.
Okay, I think Anna knows what it's like in the field too, and I'm sure the other members do also.
The only
This
addition is just
window
that
here.
egress
This
window.
window is existing, 2 other windows are gonna go in here, which will match, for all intents and purposes, all the details of these
3 windows. And that is facing the houses next door.
That's facing the house next door.
Okay, so that's not on this application.
Correct. 'Cause that's what we have shown.
Yep.
Compared to.
So
showing.
I would say that we can look at the application at hand, and you can do a separate application next month
Yes,
and include those.
yes,
And if you can get your landscape plan together by then as well, you can do an
Alright.
application for that.
yes, sir.
But I think we can move forward with this application
Yes.
and what we're looking at as is, but we can't add
No,
in
I
changing windows
understand. And
onto
we
this
learned that
application.
from the field visit with you
Yep.
out there.
Yep.
And we understand there will be revisions.
Do you think this is something that we should ask for a public comment on?
There's
Do you
some
feel like
work
there's
we're trying to
enough?
get done with the building department, at least as far as demolition is concerned, so that we can get that going during this part of the year, because we're taking out the basement floor and lowering it and cleaning up the plumbing and all kinds of things.
Or have a discussion?
And that's what we're hoping to do, is get preliminary, or get approved for what we submitted, work on that, and then bring to you updated drawings.
So the only change that I see on this application to what he's doing, as far as what this application pertains to, is getting rid of the 2 sliders
Okay.
and going to 1 and
Yep.
having 2 windows.
So still 3 openings, but 2 are
3
windows?
openings.
Yeah.
Do you mind,
All on the
George,
new-
can I have my
new addition.
packet back? Can I have my copy back?
I suppose so.
Please.
But replacing the 3 windows on the, I would say,
And when you get to
east elevation
you'll remember that you.
and retaining wall and landscaping plan, I don't believe we can,
Is this your pen too?
No.
that'll have to be a separate application.
No, that's not mine.
Okay. I guess that's.
Do you
one
agree
of
with
us
me?
here.
I understand.
Thank you.
Commissioners, do you have any other?
I have a couple questions for the, but did Commissioner Epperson, did you finish your line of questioning, or you have more?
My one other question was regarding the patio on the, below the deck, because when we were on the site, where the deck, or where the addition comes out, it's right where the grade begins to slope drastically, and it doesn't, so what is, I guess, is the
Well-
intent for the size of that patio, and
From
If that's for the grading, we can discuss that
suggestions
later.
that were discussed there, and the fact that we're looking now at a retaining wall in that area, we will maintain the 4 inches below the finished floor in the basement all the way out to the retaining wall, and then we'll still be behind the floodplain
Okay.
with that.
So the answer is that there is not much.
There's
not
really not much
field
cut
area
and
we
fill.
can work,
Just enough
because
for
it's
walking out
mostly
safely.
mostly it's in the floodplain.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it'll either be a pervious paving type block, or if, I'm suggesting that we just go to natural, use chips.
Yeah. So, like I said, I just think that's just gonna have to be on a separate
I agree.
application,
Yeah.
or we postpone and you guys can
That-
add it.
that-
But I
that
think,
will be on the-
I do think that we could vote on
The addition.
the addition, and the roof plan, and the deck,
Yeah, that would be
And
ideal for
the
me.
parking area too, right?
in the
Yes.
parking area.
Really anything related to landscaping under the.
And then changing windows, you're gonna have to come back.
Yeah, we come back for landscaping and changing the.
Yep.
Landscaping and add the retaining wall. And
Yep.
everything else that comes up when we get the information from DEQ.
Cool.
Yes, sir. But frankly, we're not attempting to change anything on the lot that isn't there right now. If we put the retaining wall in, it'll just give us an opportunity to have a flatter surface once
Yeah.
we come out the back.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure if we need the retaining wall, but if we need, we come back to.
You may or may not need to. I think it'll be your choice.
I've got a
All right.
couple questions.
Mr. Rocky?
So first of all, I guess just regarding the walkout basement, I was surprised to see the 3 sliders, but even 1 slider. Can you just confirm again that you said that the finished floor of the basement is the 100-year floodplain line, and you have a slider door there?
Yes, sir.
Basically where the sill of the slider door is at the 100-year floodplain?
I don't think so. It's higher.
At the basement, yeah, as we get out, we're gonna be very close to the floodplain, but we will have the retaining wall if DEQ requires it. If not, we don't really need it.
Okay.
Yeah, but your calculation shows we are at least 2 feet above the retainer, floodplain,
Yeah.
right?
The sill of the door would be 2 feet above the 100-year
It
floodplain?
would be
Yes.
about the 100-year floodplain, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's why I did the grading plan, which was not done when we submitted for you, but it is part of the working drawings.
Okay.
And it shows the topography and how it works out.
Okay, I guess that sounds reasonable. I just, we're concerned with the historic structure that's existing there. You keep saying like you're not changing things, but something like a retaining wall in an open space, in a historic open space, where you're used to a certain view, if we suddenly see a flat area where historically there's been a hill there, I will argue that you are changing something, so I just want to make that comment.
Yes, sir.
And then also, can you explain the size of the parking area? It's for 3 cars, and it's in the open space right there that historically there's no parking. It's right next to a city park, so can you just explain the reasoning for the parking area and also why it's the size that it is?
Maybe I can address that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we entertain a lot of people, we are parking, right now there is no parking in front of the house
Yeah.
or on the street, and we have a narrow driveway all the way to the garage, I don't call it garage, it's a shed,
Yeah.
So there is no other parking area. You can park 1 car there, if you park another car right behind it and you stack it, no other parking area exists, so I'd like to have some more parking in the, by the garage area, so when we have guests, we park the car there.
Yeah.
So, I asked for 3, and Jill suggested to have 2, and I'm fine with it.
How's the next thing?
Yeah. It, again, will
I'm
not
up to speed
change,
on this, I guess.
Yeah.
Or,
The scale, it's a very small lot. And
very
it will
small lot
be
without
gravel.
any parking.
Not all, but-
The existing driveway is there and will remain. And it has, yes, it has grade, but I drove it myself, and I was able to get down and turn around where we're proposing the parking. In fact, you can probably see it in some of the pictures. To prove that we're not changing where it's going to be, what elevation it's going to be, and it's going to be a pervious material rather than an impervious material. And
So we are working that out with the DEQ.
we're working it out
guys.
with DEQ. But it is in the floodplain, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, I do, can you go back to just the backyard picture? So.
Are we done with
Right there.
questions for the?
Perfect.
Yeah, that's where the parking goes.
I think, yeah, I think we're good. Thank you very much. You guys can be seated now.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Do you want us to turn these in to you, or just?
Nope, just leave them there. That's
Okay.
Would any commissioner like to make a motion on this application?
Can you make a motion? I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 1301 Jones Drive, a non-contributing property in the Broadway Historic District, to build a 336-square-foot addition on the rear of the house and to construct a gravel parking area on the condition that the parking area does not exceed 400 square feet, and that the parking layout is approved by staff with HDC officer assistance prior to the issuance of building permits. As conditioned, the work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, texture, material, and relationship to the rest of the building and the surrounding area, and meets the Secretary of Interior standard for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings. In particular, standards 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for additions, building site, and neighborhood or district setting, and the Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines for additions, paved areas, and landscape features.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner White. All right. Do we have any discussion on the motion?
Oh, let's go.
What was that?
Okay. So, one thing that just brought to my attention that in our motion, we have the parking area not to exceed 400 square feet. As drawn, it's 1,200 square feet?
Understand.
Okay. So in our motion, we're not approving a 1,200 square foot parking area. We're approving a 400 square foot.
Now, Chris
Parking
mentioned
area.
8 by 10, but actually, they're going to be probably a parking space best be 9 by 18 minimum.
Or 10 by 20, which would be 2 parking spaces
Yeah.
at 400.
Yeah.
You could stack them in there. You'll get
Yeah.
more than what you got. Is there,
But I did hear what you said.
is there any other discussion on this motion?
Sure, I mean,
Yeah.
the drawings were difficult to read.
Yes.
But the explanation helped. I wish the drawings were clear. I could have done a little more homework ahead of time. But the explanation, like I said, and the review committee certainly helped to explain what's going on here. I feel like it's a non-contributing structure, so in terms of the addition and some of the small changes that they're doing to the existing structure, they fit the standards.
Yeah.
The sort of the special case here in terms of the addition, I feel like, is the floodplain, which I think that will probably be dealt with in other realms than here. I mean, I'm concerned about it because if there's a flood, I suppose the existing structure has lasted this long. I mean, over 100 years, right? So, or about. So, it would be the addition that would be impacted probably because they're building toward the floodplain. I would just like to hear from the review committee again, just to talk about the, just how the open space feels in the back. And, you know, it doesn't sound like there's going to be parked cars down there on this lot that often. It's going to be when they have guests over for the most part.
Yeah.
So I'm not concerned maybe with cars parked there all the time. But I just would like to hear a little bit more about what that open space feels like in the back.
So the floodplain coordinator will, once we get through this, will review the parking area
Okay.
and approve or deny that
Okay.
above our level.
Okay.
being back there spatially, it's really wooded. It's surrounded by trees, I'm sure in the summertime. You know, I had a concern of the neighbors
Yeah.
looking down at a parking lot.
Right.
You know, and just kind of affecting the spatial awareness. And did you kind of feel that too?
Yeah.
But the way the houses are set way up on that hill, and it just drops off completely, and there's a ton of, like you said, 100-year-old century trees, maybe even way older than that.
Yeah.
And undergrowth and vegetation along the creek. I think it's not going to be, I don't think it'll affect the eyesight of the area, the spatial area. Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Anna?
agree. There is, as Commissioner Cope said, there's a lot of vegetation back there. There is currently that probably 8-foot drop off from where the garage is
Yeah.
to where the house sits, at least. So,
Yeah.
and there is a row of vegetation there right now, which will probably go away once the addition is put in. But that driveway goes all the way down to that garage, so there is existing parking there already. So you can see it's a pretty long driveway. I think adding another 400 square feet of just some paving or impervious surface will be okay. I don't think it'll negatively impact.
And there'll still be open space back there
Yeah.
and grass too.
Yeah, and
Play ball.
they'll still get a view out through also at the house.
All right. Are we ready for a vote?
Yes.
All those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Your motion has been approved. Please make sure to pull all appropriate permits, and good luck with your project.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. On to our next hearing, F2, 822 West Jefferson Street, Gardenscape Inside Yard. Mr. Chang, would you please provide the staff report?
The HDC issued a certificate of appropriateness to construct a new home on this vacant lot in April of 2016. This owner is the first occupant of the house. In June 2018, the HDC approved a deck on the west, which is towards 7th Street, elevation that was subsequently denied a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals. The site is on the northeast corner of West Jefferson and South 7th Streets. The applicant seeks HDC approval to construct a retaining wall and patio on the west side of the house, which is facing South 7th, and to swap a window for a door and install a stair from the door to the patio. Here you can see the elevation from West Jefferson. Again, another view looking out towards South 7th. It is a little snow covered. We'll go through these slides, but we'll also show you some slides what they're proposing that isn't snow covered. So it may be a little easier to take a look at what they're proposing. Again, this is along South 7th where they're proposing the patio. And again, these strings are covered with snow, but it'll show you some heights of the retaining wall. Again, I think it might be a little, we can always refer to these pictures. They are proposing some additional pavement along the drive, and you can see the green stripe. This is looking southbound on South 7th. Again, this is from the corner of the house, looking outwards towards South 7th. Here are the pre-snowfall slides, which were provided by the applicant, which may be a little easier to take a look at with the green lines where the proposed wall is along South 7th. Then you can see some of the patio area going down and some of the turf area. You can always refer, these are the steps that will be going down to the patio area. A spiral staircase. You can see just above where the window will be converted to a door. Again, steps down towards the driveway. The strings, which will show you some of the heights. We can always go back and refer to the proposed heights. Again, looking along South 7th, going south, where they're proposing the wall. Again, this is along the drive, proposing impervious surface. This is an adjacent neighbor that's actually across, I should say, from West Jefferson, a similar type of wall, retaining wall. You can see some of the heights, materials we can refer to. These are, from the applicant, some of the materials I think that may be proposed or could be in consideration. An elevation from South 7th. Again, kind of an aerial view of what's being proposed, the turf area, the brick paved area, and the landscaping and the walls. Again, another view. This is the gate to be located at the front wall of the house. This is an example of the stair to lead from the new west elevation door to the patio. You can look at those locations on the plot plan. Again, materials that may be used. Other examples. And I believe we've already discussed item number 2 and 10 of the Secretary of Interior standards. But for alterations, additions were recommended. Designing new exterior additions to historic buildings or adjacent new construction which is compatible with the historic character of the site and which preserve the historic relationship between a building or buildings, landscape features, and open space. Removing non-significant buildings, additions, or site features which detract from the historic character of the site. Not recommended. Introducing new construction onto the building site which is visually incompatible in terms of size, scale, design, materials, color, and texture, or which destroys historic relationships on the site. Residential decks and patios, which is appropriate. Installing a patio flush with grade using stone, brick pavers, or concrete. Custom materials would be considered on a case-by-case basis. And that concludes my report.
All right, thank you. Once again, myself, Commissioner Cope, and Commissioner Epperson, we're on the review committee. Will you please give us, we can give us your report? You go first, Dan.
I hear what you're saying, Max. So if, yes, thank you. I was gonna, Mr. Chang, if you can go back to some of the photos from the
Yes.
site visit. So I think there's, the way that they had the stakes set up, there were a couple of heights noted. The top string, go to another.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go. So 4 feet, that's at the bottom end, that's up what's proposed in the application. And then there's another string in the middle there that's at 3 feet. And then the string at the bottom is actually the surface of the patio. So when we were on site, we were looking to see, you know, how imposing is that wall really going to be at the proposed height? And we felt like 4 feet would be really imposing and really take away from the open space of that the side yard lends itself to. So it was appreciated that there was an alternate height, and we had some further discussion on that, which I think we can discuss with the applicants. But I would say, as proposed in the application, I think there needs to be some amendment to that. The patios, the actual paving for the patio surface, I think we were okay with, and appreciated that there's a good amount of turf surface remaining.
Yep.
You know, in the front yard and almost half of, or a third of at least, the side yard. And then they probably have some questions on the additional paving in the back.
Yeah. One of the things that we looked at on site was the height of, the grade of the actual patio and the height of the wall.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not actually serving really much as a retaining wall, it's just a wall.
Yeah.
In the neighborhood, you see a lot of those type of retaining systems, but they're more looking like a curb.
Correct.
And the grade behind the curb is usually, you know, within 5 or 6 inches of the top of that retaining area, or the final grade, at most. It did seem a little large, being on site, because it isn't a very large space, and like I said, like Anna said, it was very helpful to have the grades, the heights, where you're going to have your final grade marked, and a couple of different, proposed wall heights for us. With the, do you have anything to add? No. Okay. Would the applicant please come up to the podium, state your name for the record, and please sign in?
Good evening, everybody. I'm Nathan with Turf Jockeys. I'm the owner. I'm got a degree in horticulture and landscape architecture, almost 20 years worth. I appreciated you guys taking the time to go out there. I knew it snowed, and that's why I took some pictures ahead of time and I sent them along, so hopefully those were a little helpful to you. Early on, I involved Jill and Jerry in this design process just to make sure that we were all appropriate. I did walk the neighborhoods to make sure that what we were going to design was appropriate. Similar plant materials, not barking at any neighbor, that sort of thing. So with regard to the patio size, we worked really diligently with Jill to reduce that. The original design was larger. It is a unique site. It's a corner site. There is no backyard. It's only the side yard, and it's quite an extreme grade. So being able to use that site, play ball with your kids, have a cookout, something like that, it's just not susceptible to do that. And so immediately we went to a terrace situation. And then so we went back and forth with, okay, if we're going to terrace it, we don't want it to be cumbersome to be lugging down a mower down the set of stairs to mow a little area. So that's why we incorporated the landscape beds on the outer edges of the patio, and that was the work with Mr. Hancock. So that's going to help handle some of the storm water management. So the reason why the wall at the lowest end of the property is proposed at 4 feet is if you take the site elevations and the lasers, we're trying to balance the height of the patio with how far we need to dig into the existing side of the hill. So we were just trying to find a balance with that. Now, I certainly can understand and appreciate that because we knew that it might look a little big, but we were trying to create that necessary dig out, if you will. So that's why I put the alternate 3 foot, just so we could get a bearing on that. The only thing with the 3 foot, which isn't a big deal, is the patio would just be excavated in a little bit more into the side of the hill. So that's not a break deal situation.
So that would change kind of the stair layout. Maybe we'd have an extra step possibly too.
We actually would have an extra stair probably in the upper to go up to the lawn. Yep. Yes, yep. You're absolutely correct.
Okay.
But our overall emphasis was a park-like setting. We wanted to create an environment where the family could enjoy that space, using the evergreen boxwoods as a good base color. It's a 4-season plant to really set that building off. It's clearly really tall. Again, the grade's going down, so it looks like a skyscraper. But we were trying to give it a nice, healthy, evergreen base with that.
You said boxwood?
Yes, those are boxwoods.
Yeah. You got any questions?
Yeah, in the corner where you have the proposed service area with impervious pavement,
Yes.
is there,
The corner, I'm sorry, when you say the corner of the drive?
yeah, the corner of the
Yes.
driveway where you have, there's
Northeast
an
corner.
existing sloped grade there that's much higher. Is there intent to excavate that as well?
Yes.
And then would the retaining wall be extended, or how are you planning on to
It would
handle
be
that?
extended, correct.
So there's a portion that would be removed and then,
Is there a photo of that?
yeah,
What
Yep.
you're referring
This-
to is that area
Yep,
where
back corner.
it's just that
Yeah.
pile of soil.
yeah,
And if you were to pull your car into the garage, that would be the natural turnabout. And so if you can't turn, even a small Prius. You almost have to back out of there. So We are proposing to eliminate that pile of dirt, extend the retaining wall with the complementary retaining wall material of the other block usages, so that would be pleasing, not just a unsightly wall, but yes, we'd like to use that so the clients could back their cars up and safely drive out into the road.
And then just so I'm reading this correctly, the wall that's running down that green line will be an 18-inch wall, 1 foot 6 inches tall. And then
Along the drive?
Yeah, along the.
There is no wall there.
Oh,
It's
it's
just an extension.
it's just an
of-
extension, okay.
Yes,
And then, so there's no, okay,
no wall.
cool.
And what's the material there?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Is it
that's my next
the
question.
same
Yeah.
material as the back thing?
It's a, they call it Town Hall, it's a Unilock
Right.
product.
Okay.
There was a picture there that was in a herringbone pattern, it was kind of over the top, but it was that style brick right there. So it's that basalt, it's a cobalt, dark blue, black.
And then the retaining area will be the same block that you use along 7th Street too.
Correct,
I think that was,
correct. And that's more of a split face look
yep.
in a lighter color.
I guess another one of the kind of things that came up with the plan and trying to scale it down with the height that we kind of discussed on the site visit was the pillars along 7th Street. I know they're nice to bookmark those corners and can be very visually appealing, but that also just adds more height to that area.
Sure.
I mean, would there be any objection to, I think just, I don't know if you agree with me or not, but just the 3 front ones that are actually on the sidewalk, I don't think any of the other ones will have an effect as much as those. And even with, the landscape plan, I think, getting rid of the ones that are just right on the sidewalk would help kind of knock it down a little bit.
Sure.
With the 3-foot height opposed to the 4-foot height.
Yeah, and I think that brings up something else we discussed, but maybe we should, on
Yeah.
site, but maybe we should save that for the discussion section.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can, the brick patio that
Yes.
you're gonna walk down to,
Yes.
you've got an elevation for it, 97 foot 11 inches. But I don't know what the elevation of, like the finished floor elevation, is that 100 or is that where you're working down from, or?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure what that was, and the reason why I was curious was trying to visualize the spiral stair. And the way it's drawn, it looks like you come out the spiral stair and then actually walk underneath the landing that you walked out on. But I didn't think it would be possible to do that.
No, it won't.
Okay, is it more like the photo that you included where you sort of do spiral and then
Yes.
come back?
It's more like a stoop. It's almost like
Can you
a
show that
3/4.
photo?
It's almost like a 3/4.
Okay, so yeah, that's all right, we'll get there, exactly.
Go back.
Yeah, it's forward.
Exactly.
Right, okay, you're not actually coming down, all right. And do
So-
you need, but you're showing a landing, so is that like a 3-foot by 3-foot landing that you
Yeah,
come out
that's-
to?
That's required.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so you come out and it's would be like a metal, like a steel
Correct.
landing to mat, okay.
That's
And then you
correct.
come down, and then with respect to the existing basement windows, there's 2 basements at the back of the house there.
Yes.
what is the level, like, what's 97 foot 11 inches relative to like the sill height of those windows? That picture.
9711 is approximately, it's almost 16 inches, no, about a foot below the window sill.
Okay,
So we've got 12 inches.
okay. So, that's helpful to visualize.
Is that, yeah, that
That's a
puts
great
that
question.
corner of that wall about 4'6"?
Like, this elevation is great, and then it would, I think, nice to have one right against the house too, to sort of understand the ups and
Oh,
downs,
I
of, you know, more of a
understand.
section kind of, but like,
Gotcha.
where, when it touches the house, you know, where is it? And so somewhere here, there's the windows, and and then my last question here, just to understand it, like, that 9711, where is it relative to the height of this wall here?
It's about in the middle,
It's like right here.
right about there.
So it's almost like, is it
Below.
right there, or is it below?
It's slightly below that.
Got it, okay. All right.
Sorry for the confusion.
Nope, that's okay, that's why I'm
Great
having a
question.
discussion. Okay, I think those are my
Any other questions?
initial questions. at least.
All right. Thank you. You may be seated.
you.
Oh, wait, I have another question.
Well, in 1 minute.
Sorry, sorry, Nathan.
No, it's okay.
All right, okay. Let me just make sure, okay, it says existing rain garden, are you gonna be planting things in the rain garden, or are you just leaving it exactly how it is?
We're probably gonna dress up the wall sides, is all we're gonna do, but we're
Okay.
not touching anything
It's
with the
just
rain
whatever
Right.
that looks like, that's what it's gonna look like?
garden. We're gonna make it look a little
You'll make
nicer
it
than
look
what it
nicer,
is now.
okay.
To be, it's probably more appropriate to what the landscape looks like now.
Okay.
So, yeah, we're gonna keep the integrity of that rain garden.
At the, last question, at this wall here, that's a far drop, do you need a guardrail there at your patio? Because it's a,
The wall's above the patio.
Correct.
Down there, by
The-
like 3 feet. So the.
it's a 3-foot wall?
It's a 3-foot
Okay,
wall,
all
it's
right,
not a
I got
retaining
you.
wall, it's
Yep.
just a.
It's a 3-foot wall
Yeah.
at that.
Correct.
Okay.
And then
It is a
we've got the-
guardrail.
Then we've
It's-
got the landscape, on the outside wall, we've
That
got
buffers.
3-foot boxwood hedges around that, and then
A
so we.
3-foot buffer, okay.
Correct.
All right.
And then the only
I guess that
access
works.
we've
If it's
got
3
is-
feet high, then you're good, yeah.
Okay, yes.
thanks.
Yeah, because there's really not much of a drop off once you hit, when you're on that side elevation. When you, where that bike is parked here, you know, that area is only maybe less than a foot lower than the grade of the patio.
You think the bikes are just a foot lower than the patio?
Yeah.
Yet there's a 4'6" wall there? Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
yeah, right?
Correct.
Which is where.
I'm good on questions, and I'll just save the rest for discussion.
Okay. Okay, you may be seated.
All right, thank you.
Moving on to the public hearing, are there any members of the public who would like to speak on this agenda item? Okay. moving-
Sorry.
Oh,
Quick word.
yeah,
Come on up. Sorry.
come up. If you're going to come up, please make sure to state your name and sign in on our, we have a sign-in sheet right up front.
That's fine.
Now we do.
Now we do. My name is Michael Taft. I live in the adjacent property, 818 West Jefferson,
Yes.
the older house to the east of the new construction. We used to own that same lot that had nowhere, these are not original contour lines at all for what existed on that property prior. But my comments don't relate to that. They're really quite brief. As an Old West Side resident for quite some time, and I value the neighborhood character, both environmentally but also socially, about what having people outside along the streets, on porches and patios creates for the neighborhood. And where we lack that, in fact, is along 7th Street. Having lived there for a long time, I can tell you, not many people spend much time on their porches, in part because of the traffic, okay, but in part because of otherwise unfavorable elements to allow people to be outside. And I am saying that this particular proposal, carrying with it whatever it does for you all, I would support because it allows people to be outside and interacting with other people on the street. Simple as that.
All right.
And I support it.
Thank you very much.
I'll fill it in.
Thank you.
Would the applicant like to rebuke any comments from the public? Sure? Okay. Do we have any additional questions?
I would also like to say something quickly.
All right, please make sure you state your name clearly and.
Sure. My name is
sign in.
Ken Johnson, and I would just like to, one, emphasize the community connected aspect, and having exited that driveway numerous times, 7th is a street that moves really fast, and currently it's quite difficult to pull out forward from the current driveway setup, and so I think from a ability to see pedestrians, especially at night, and from the standpoint of making sure that you're aware of traffic, it's important that that line of sight is made consistent in a way that's safe, and I think this will be a good improvement.
You don't think the
I do not.
4-foot wall will?
I
impede,
think compared to
your
the-
sight lines up
I
7th
think
Street?
compared to the way that the lot is currently filled,
Yeah.
I think having a consistent sight line as opposed to the fill and the trees that are there now will be a vast improvement.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Applicant, would you like to rebuke any?
I would just really quick.
Thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate the comment, and in the same breath, I'd also like to add that that was a discussion that Jill and I had, and we actually, with the design, based off of 6 feet off of the front of the sidewalk,
Yep.
going towards the driveway, we had a sight line of 21 feet to the south, because we were concerned that a toddler or someone might be riding their bike, and I wanted to know that distance. So we actually had, with the 4 foot, we had a 21 foot. So with a 3 foot, it would be even better. So just know that we did.
A kid on a bike, 21 feet is about 3 seconds.
Right. You're right.
Coming down 7th, maybe faster. But I'm not a physicist. Okay. Would any, I will now close the public hearing portion of the application. The application may be seated. Would any commissioners like to make a motion on the application?
Sure.
Commissioner Rockman?
I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 822 West Jefferson Street, a contributing property in the Old West Side Historic District. Is that true? It's a I mean,
It's
it
a
is, right? Or
non-contributing property.
is it non-contributing or is it contributing?
It's a non-contributing.
It's non-contributing.
I will restate that. It says contributing, but I will say non-contributing
Is it
because it's non-contributing, right? Yeah. I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 822 West Jefferson Street, a non-contributing property in the Old West Side Historic District, to construct a 324 square feet of new patio and a retaining wall along South 7th Street. As proposed, the work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, texture, material, and relationship to the rest of the building and the surrounding area, and meets the Secretary of Interior's standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings. In particular, standards 2 and 10 and the guidelines for building site, and the Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines for patios.
Support.
Seconded by Commissioner White. Is there any discussion on the motion or application?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
So I wanted to discuss the height of the wall that was proposed as the 3 feet versus the 4 feet, especially at that end. And then after hearing also where that patio is supposed to fall in relation to, can we go back to that one section? So another on-site, Commissioner Cope and I discussed potentially even minimizing that wall height to be 6 to 8 inches above the patio line so that it creates more of a
Above the
curb.
Finished grade.
Above the finished grade consistently. If you look at some of the surrounding houses that there were photos of where it's just a short retaining wall with a little bit of grade above it, it's plenty of, it offers retaining support. It also gives a nice landscaping feature, it creates a buffer. I think there is additional planting along the proposed plan that would still provide some screening. So I just wanted to put that out there as far as a discussion from the rest of the commissioners and potentially to the applicant for.
Yeah, I
amending.
agree with you. I just think, seeing the northwest side, I don't know that this application as drawn meets the standards as far as, the spatial awareness and neighborhood setting.
Okay.
I think there's definitely a lot of potential. I don't have any issue with the interior scape of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a beautifully drawn plan, and I don't think that we have any problems with meeting the standards with the plan itself. I just think that
It's
the
the
wall
height.
being up above everything, doesn't really fit the character of the neighborhood and the surrounding settings. Which I'll pull up the.
Regarding the wall,
Secretary of Interior.
should we just talk about the wall as a topic? Yeah, I agree that, I think I'm slightly disagreeing with what you're saying, but agreeing in concept that to me, the wall, especially at the end, is too high for the neighborhood. If it was in a backyard or something, it'd be totally different, but it's right on the sidewalk. I believe like a fence, a fence would need 50% opacity
Yeah.
to be approved in that location, I believe, and there's a reason for that. It's, and I don't even think it could be 4'6" in the front open space. I think it's 3 feet or something like that. But so, just saying that if that's the standard, and I think it's preferably lower than 3 feet. This is a tricky house because it's on a corner, and so it's like, well, your side yard is sort of your backyard in that moment. So, the design has to, thread the needle in terms of like getting what you want out of using the space, but also realizing that it's not your backyard, it's actually a corner lot. So yeah, I would agree. Okay, the other thing though is that it's a sloping site. So to say something like it just needs to be a curb, I think that a fence does look nice when it's a level fence and then stepping down, like the design shows. I would probably support something that stepped down. I mean, like 2 feet is sort of the example shown as the step down. If it stepped down another 2 feet, that would get it down to 2.6 or something like that. And I think, that's at the highest point. And then as it's sloping, it's lower than that the rest of the way. And I think that will work based on where the brick patio is, based on the description. But I won't support it, I don't think, at 4'6", but maybe with a step down. I'm okay with like more than a curb, especially because it is a sloping site. And, the public comments, I take those to where it's like, you also want the homeowner to feel like it's their little space and they want to be out there, but you also want the feeling of community where you don't feel like you're walking by this a tall wall that would be out of place in the neighborhood. The other thing is I'm fine with if the post wants to have a cap on it, I guess I'm okay with that, especially because the design shows the wall being built away from the sidewalk a certain distance, right? Like if,
6 inches.
sure. So, you know, if it was right on the sidewalk, but, you know, if the designer wants to put a post on the, you know, a cap on the post, like, I guess I would, you know, I would support that. I have other comments, but they're not about the wall, so I'll let the discussion go about the wall if there's something else.
Yeah, I think we're kind of meeting in the middle on that. I think you're right too, as far as, you know, with the grade, having those straight lines.
Yeah.
And getting it to a minimal height to where the steps start. I don't know what that minimal height is down there, but I know that the wall is, you know, 4 feet above grade. So at that area, that grade is carried all the way through that area, so I wonder.
Well, the top of
Does
that
this-
wall is 4'6", and it was
Minus-
described as having it be a 3-foot-high guardrail there,
Yeah.
so we could, if you take that down 2 feet, then you
Yeah.
have 1 foot of wall
Yeah,
at the patio from the patio side, and then the other side you have 2'6", so it's not, you don't need a guardrail.
yeah.
And I think that's actually a little bit
Reasonable.
more reasonable, yeah.
So 2'6".
Yeah, as far as height.
Reducing
And I'm,
the
As long as it works with the design.
Yeah.
it seems
Well,
like
that's
it
the thing,
will,
it's,
but yeah,
it might
is.
mess with this, like he's discussed earlier, is
Right.
changing the stair plan at
Yeah.
that point.
Yeah, I guess we just have to decide what we're comfortable with from a height standpoint, and then,
And then, so what else did you have comment about?
I guess I just was curious about the bike parking. Maybe that was a question for the applicant, but like, that probably wasn't a question for the applicant. I was just like wondering, do you know what, are they gonna park a bunch of bikes there? Or is that like when your buddy comes over,
It's an
there's
extra
enough?
parking spot.
There's so much places you could park your bike. There's so much, you know, I mean, it's like 2/3 paved. I just wonder if that
And that area is-
area could be,
I believe that area is paved already. Wait, no, it's not.
it's not.
it's proposed 144 square feet bike parking. And, I mean, I think that, okay, let me back up. I like this concept so much more than the deck. So I'm really happy with how the homeowner has taken this. I wanted to say that first, but we were talking about the wall. I really like this concept. I think that we can get it to fit the neighborhood, and it's gonna be so much better than the deck was gonna be, for so many reasons. So I was gonna say that I like how, you know, there's a lot of concrete back there. By framing it in the brick, I think that will look nice. It sort of softens the edge, but I guess I'm just questioning the need, if it's bike parking, and we'll probably have to, unless you know, we'll have to bring the applicant back up probably to discuss, but it's a question on the table for discussion of what do you guys think about the bike parking area next to the enormous concrete driveway?
So I have the same kind of question.
So you can back up. So it's not bike
I
parking.
guess it would be a question, because I don't see it on here, even on the elevation. You mind stepping up one more time for one quick question? And maybe you can address Commissioner Rockland's question, and I have one additional question too, go ahead, Dave.
Well, maybe you can talk about the 2-foot step-down idea, and also just talk about what's the need for the bike parking. Is it possible to take that back to either turf or some sort of natural vegetation in that area? What do you think about that?
Great questions. I appreciate the opportunity. One, the wall, and I know it's something that we wrestle with, but I'd like to really try to really hit home with the fact that when we're talking about the heights of these walls, from the curb of the sidewalk back to the driveway, you're already losing 8 inches. So we're losing 8 inches. So when we say 3 feet and we say 4 feet, it's really from that part.
Yeah.
So in the discussion of, let's just go with the 3 foot, okay, with the discussion of 3 foot, we're already 8 inches lower than 3 feet up at the sidewalk line, because we're losing that in natural grade.
Yeah.
Okay, and then because Mr. Rockland identified, because it's sloping to the north, that when we're talking about these numbers, those are the highest parts of the wall. And the reason why we're trying to get as much height out of the northern wall is because when we cut it back, we're going into the earth just because of the elevation of the patio. So if we go lower than 3 feet, if you look into the drawing where we've got the actual patio area, we actually start receding into or below the actual sidewalk grade. So I totally understand and appreciate the discussion on the height. It's clearly a very sensitive issue, and we want to be right on the mark. But there is a reason why we chose those heights, so that we wouldn't have a retaining wall coming in, and then we'd have this funny grass line, and then we'd have another retaining wall coming up. So you understand what I'm saying?
Oh.
So we were trying to trying to balance that center elevation. So that's what we were trying to achieve there. Now to the bike parking, and I talked with the owners on this. This is something, one, it's going to give them just a little extra turnabout to get their front tire off when they come out. And then also with their friends, and they envision their families bringing their wagons and their kids, because this is a terraced space. This isn't a flat lawn. And so they thought that this would be a good place for them to put the auxiliary stuff instead of in the driveway where cars would be parked. We figured they would have, you guess, other than the cars in the garage. So we were looking for some auxiliary space to put those items, because that would be they would have to walk, they would have to pull their wagons or park their bikes all the way up on the south side of the grass and then walk down, which is not the end of the world either.
Yeah.
But
The other question I had with the bike parking, that is going to be flush with the rest of the driveway.
that is correct.
And then in front of it, where you don't have paving, I guess it would be west of that white line in our photograph we have up here. Is that grass, landscaping?
That's landscaping. We
Okay.
actually have a really nice tree,
Okay.
a Japanese maple tree with
That's what you put
ground
there.
cover.
Okay. Excellent. Yes.
Did you have any other?
I don't have any
I'm,
other questions.
it's all processing
Okay.
right now.
Just,
So if you have something.
just one more clarification on the height you're saying. The 97.3 is the height of the patio. You mentioned, there's the height.
Let me get to my grading plan.
98.6 is a proposed elevation of the, sorry. 97.11 is the proposed elevation of the brick patio.
That's correct.
And then the existing grade, it's at like 97 at the sidewalk side, just close to that other pylon or where the wall steps.
Correct.
So I guess two things. You mentioned that there's potential you could go down a step in the patio itself. So it would go to like 97.3 really, if you needed to go down more.
Sure.
I guess then to go back to where that grade would have to, now you're cutting, the wall would be cutting into the grade if we drop it down to 2.6. If we added if you had one more step within the wall, and instead of 2, would a third step help
Yes.
that? If we wanted to say 2.6 is the max height for the wall? I guess it's just a
Right.
question for clarification.
Yes, that's how we would have to solve that issue, is if we're being limited on the size of the height of the wall, then we would have to use more steps to get to the different terrace.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. That answers my questions. All right.
I guess I'm still thinking about I'm good, Nathan.
Oh,
I'm just-
okay, thank
thanks,
you.
Nathan. You can be seated.
Like the bike parking area, I guess what like, just kind of looking big picture at this plan, there is so much impervious, and I know it's gonna be taken care of, stormwater-wise, that's taken care of, but just in terms of like the feel of it in the neighborhood, like the neighborhood setting aspect.
I agree.
The one place I see, like, I get the layout, and I think it's very usable, and I don't want to take away usable pervious space that makes sense in this design, but the bike parking, the east end of that is going to be used for the car to turn, and I think that's valuable, and I want the cars to be
Not
turning
back
where
up.
they want to be turning. So maybe if it's 9 foot wide, then maybe you need 9 feet extra deep to do that. But then there's another 7 feet where you've got this 6 foot part of planting where the tree is. I just feel like it would be really nice if we could just get that 7 by 9 foot area back to, some sort of natural planting. There's already a tree there. If those were not exactly flip, but in a way flip, where you just have this little, 6 feet with a tree in it is gonna look a little bit undersized too. The tree is hanging over the sidewalk already. So maybe the tree could be pushed back a little bit to the east if that was a bigger planting area.
I agree.
I don't know, it just seems like,
It does seem like a lot.
yeah, it's a lot of impervious for the neighborhood.
It is. And there's still, 2 track driveways up and down the whole neighborhood.
So that's, I'm hung up on that, so I don't feel like I want to approve that bike parking area. It's just the one spot to me that looks like they're asking for too much. And then the other thing is just the height of the wall, where I don't even know, how does zoning approve like a 4 foot high,
That's what I'm wondering. After
100%
discussing
opaque wall?
with Jill, this all has to go through grading too. They'll have to get grading permits for this, and I think
And
they'll.
zoning.
And zoning, so I think they'll get, maybe some changes and alterations at that point. But we don't know.
Well, how are you feeling in terms of like the height of the wall? Is it, you said curb earlier, but what are you thinking that now? And
Well, I think that the 2'6", the 3 foot, I think is a lot more reasonable than 4'6", 4.5 feet. It's back to the thing you said right at the beginning, it's becomes a fence at that point. And, that would never get approved by the city of Ann Arbor, right there. A privacy fence, 4 feet tall, 100% opacity, But the thing that's tricky about it is going into the grade, so, but still, when you're on the inside of that wall, it's 4'6" all the way around the inside of it. So you don't see it on the outside going up the hill, but on the interior of it, that wall is still there. So lowering it, I think would be, I don't think it meets the standard as is for historic district setting. I can read the guideline I'm talking about is a building site not recommended introducing new construction into the building site which is visually incompatible in terms of size, scale, design, materials, color, texture, or which destroys historic relationships on the site. I think the interior plan is great, but I think the height actually does that. So in zoning, retaining walls can be placed anywhere on the property. Anything taller than 4 feet requires a building permit. So, so he will require a building permit for this project as well, which opens a whole nother can of worms for you as well. So
Well, we can approve it then.
If we can,
And let the cities say if you can build it or not.
that's what's gonna end up
I mean,
happening.
that's the easiest way for us.
Only if it applies to the
people,
standards.
let the building.
But it doesn't meet the standards as
Right.
is.
So I think there would have
But
to
what
be an amendment.
standards doesn't make?
In my, I don't believe that it, from the Secretary of Interior guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings.
But part of that is in the ground.
and this is
The 4
specific-
The 4.6 though is in the ground. I mean, so he's got a hole there. We're not seeing 4.6 above ground.
You're seeing 4'6" above ground from this corner,
At the end here,
yeah,
Commissioner White,
all
4'6".
the way, and it's 4'6" height all the way through. But
Okay.
you just don't see the inside of it, because, you know, you will when you're walking up down the street.
Right.
And that's another kind of concern, although it is, the patio is setback, you know, you've got 6 feet and you've got. At that corner where they meet, there's right there where the steps are, there's a 4-foot drop off right there on the sidewalk. 6 inches off plus the 12 inches.
I'm
of
not,
the-
I'm not sure what you're saying. What are you saying?
So when you're
You
coming.
need a plan?
And when you're coming down here,
Yeah, let's look at a plan.
you drop,
Return to the plan, please.
Yeah.
No, yeah, the plan, yeah.
it almost is as if that needs a fence on top of that in that area. So where the steps are and where the wall meets the sidewalk there, the grade of the sidewalk, and it's only about 6 or 8 inches above, it looks like.
Where are you talking about?
Right here,
Okay,
right here.
all right, yep. So
On
what-
the other
and then
side
what-
of that wall,
Uh-huh.
it's a 4.5 foot drop. So I almost,
How's that possible?
because the patio is flat. It's 4'6", 4 feet deep on the other side of the wall. It's a wall. It's not, the brick isn't raised way up to that height.
But there's 1, 2, 3, there's 4 risers. 7-inch risers, it's 28 inches from the turf to the brick patio.
And the turf grades down towards the,
Oh, the turf grades down,
from the hill.
20
So the-
inches.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, so right here, you're dropping 4 steps down, which means from where that arborvitae is at the top corner of the stairs to the bottom, there's a 28, 30-inch drop right there from the sidewalk. My kids are gonna be running up and down that.
Well, the sidewalk's also dropping though,
Yeah,
with it.
but on the inside, I'm talking of the
Yeah.
patio, it's a big drop-off, where it's easily accessible for, in the area, for people to jump up on top and climb all over it. So I think there's gonna be red flags with this plan even beyond us.
I think though, for purposes of this discussion,
Yeah.
that the height is the thing that we're saying is out of scale, that doesn't
Is
meet
the
our
height.
guidelines. That it's out of size scale to the rest of the surrounding area. So if we had
Motion to change the
maybe an
motion.
amendment, yeah, a motion to change the motion or amendment to a particular height, if we feel like the wall at a certain height is okay, then I think that we could move forward that way if we can.
So I think we vote on this motion and then
Should I amend the motion?
read it or amend the motion.
I could amend the motion to say, it says as proposed. I could say, and a retaining wall not to exceed 30 inches to the sidewalk, 30 inches above the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Does that sound like what?
At the highest point, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So in a retaining wall, maximum 30 inches above the sidewalk along South 7th Street.
Yes.
Okay, and then is there any
I don't
feeling
think
about
there's any
the
other-
bike? I mean, I feel like the amount of impervious surface is also
I
Something
think that's
that's
another
not-
thing in the motion that I think we should add in. I agree with
All right.
you. I think that also is just pushing it a little bit too far for that same, for the same guidelines,
okay.
for building sites.
So the motion says to construct 324 square feet of new patio, but I don't know where that number comes from actually, because the brick itself is 450 square feet. The bike parking is 144 square feet. The service area is 216 square feet, and I don't know how many square feet this, 18-inch by
So-
40 feet
So I would-
and that, I don't know where that number 324 square feet came from.
I think the 324 is the, well, it's not, because 144 and 216 is not.
Okay,
That's
well,
350.
scratch 324 square feet, and I will just say to construct, does anyone, do we know where that came from before I strike it from the motion?
No, I think it may
No,
have
I
been a
don't know
miss.
where it came from.
Okay.
A
It's
typo.
way more than that.
So-
I could say to construct new patio as shown in the plan, in the landscape plan, except
Excluding the
limit
proposed
limit
144.
the bike parking to 9 feet by 9 feet.
81 square feet.
To 81.
Yeah, I think that would do it. I think you're right there. It just
Okay.
gives a little bit more grassy area there. And that still gives them that corner to cut their wheels on
Yeah.
if they need to.
Or to park a bike if they want to.
Yeah, park a bike.
Chris, did you get it?
I did, I believe I did.
All right.
Okay, so let's do one more. Commissioner Rockland, would you like
I'm
to
ready
make an
to-
amendment for the motion?
Oh, do I need to read that?
Yeah, well,
Again?
let's make just one clear amendment to it, and then.
Oh, okay.
And then we'll,
I will read
Well-
that sentence again.
yeah.
Chris might have to help me.
Did
though.
you get it? Did you write it down?
He wrote it down, yeah,
Okay.
so I think we have it, but,
Okay.
okay, I'll just start with, to construct a new patio, to construct a new patio as shown in the landscape plan, except limit the size of the bike parking to a 9 foot by 9 foot or 81 square feet area, and a retaining wall with a maximum height of 30 inches above the sidewalk along South 7th Street.
Support.
Seconded by Commissioner White. Any discussion on the amended motion? No? There's no other discussion. Let's have a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. All those opposed, please say no. All right, the motion carries. Your application has been approved. You may now apply for any city-required permits before beginning your project. City staff will review all permits for consistency with the application approved here today. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Good luck. It's going to be beautiful. All right. On to F3, 263 Crest Avenue, rear addition. Mr. Cheng, will you please give us the staff report?
This two-story colonial revival was constructed in 1938 and first occupied by J. Walter and Helen Stencil. Walter was employed by Fisher Pharmacy. The house is on the northeast corner of Crest Avenue and Buena Vista Avenue. The applicant proposes a 303 square foot second floor rear addition with an open first floor and an expanded deck beneath the addition. On a modern second floor rear addition, one window is proposed to be replaced, one infilled, and two new installed in new openings. Here you can see, this is the Old West Side, the view from Crest. Again, this is the rear of the house where the addition is being proposed. Looking from Buena Vista. Oh, and it is on a corner lot. You can see the deck to the rear. We've got additional pictures. That deck will be approximately 2.5 feet pulled away from the tree that's shown in the picture. You can also see the addition next door. This will line up with the rear addition. Again, jetting out. Portion of the existing deck. Here you can see the aerial view with the proposed addition. The deck will be L-shaped, so you can see it underneath the proposed addition that will be moved back from the tree and move a little bit further towards the east. Here is with the existing basement plan. First floor, second floor, that's all existing. Here you can see the proposed deck. Again, with the addition that's above. Top picture is the existing, where you can see the deck, and then the proposed. Again, additional elevations from the rear of the house. Elevation, this is the proposed addition above. You can refer back. We've already discussed the Secretary of Interior standards of 2 and 9 and 10. Additions recommended, constructing a new addition so that there is the least possible loss of historic materials and so that character-defining features are not obscured, damaged, or destroyed. Locating the attached exterior addition at the rear or on an inconspicuous side of a historic building and limiting its size and scale in relationship to the historic building. Guidelines for all additions appropriate, limiting the size and scale of the addition in relationship to the historic building so that it does not diminish or visually overpower the building or the district. The addition's footprint should not exceed 1/2 of the original building's footprint or 1/2 of the original building's total floor area. That concludes my presentation.
All right. With the, myself and actually just Commissioner was at review committee for this particular site. Do you have any review for me?
Yeah, so it was, I think the addition is pretty straightforward. Yeah, that's it.
Cool.
I think that's a pretty good photo. So if you can see, it's a small, I guess the addition itself is pretty limited. There's an existing deck there. The addition's going to be going over part of that deck, and then a new deck constructed out a little bit further. You can see in this image, the tree is to remain. There is the portion of the branch that's in the top right corner. The owner stated would likely have to be removed. The addition is coming out roughly to, I guess, where that branch is. So I think other than that, it pretty much meets our guidelines as far as size scale relationship to the existing house.
Would the applicant please come up to the podium, state your name for the record, and please sign in.
Hi there, I'm Kevin Adkins. I'm the architect for the project.
Thanks. Do you have any anything to add to the report?
I don't have much to add, no.
Okay.
I'm certainly welcome to try to answer any questions or concerns that you have. Just one thing I do, about the branch, I wanted to point out that the addition stops just short of it, but does get close to it. And I think the homeowners had, prior to the project, been considering removing that branch anyway, so it's not only because of the project.
Is that a silver maple?
No, it's a what?
No, it's a
It's pin oak?
Pin oak, yeah, yeah, an oak, yeah. That branch is a bit of an outlier.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And that trim, that tree you can tell has been taken care of over the years too.
Yeah, it's a big part of why we didn't do a first floor addition, is the root system throughout the yard. We tried to stay far away from it, and we even did some prodding around the yard and placed the columns, hopefully, and then we'll assess as well as we start digging. If we hit a large root, then we'll rearrange where the columns are going.
All right. Any other questions from the commissioners?
I did have one clarification question.
Mm-hmm.
There's a window that's called to be removed and replaced with new on that, I guess, south elevation, the one right above the garage in this photo. But it looks like it's the same size on the new elevations. Does it need to come out? Is that one coming out?
Yeah, so that window is part of a former addition. That area is a former addition. So it's not an original window to the original portion of the house. So in keeping with the new addition, that window is not sort of as nice as the others. So we're replacing that window the same size to make it a nicer window to match.
Okay.
Go, sir.
When I saw the plans, I just thought like the second story addition with nothing, or the deck underneath was a bit unusual, and then I just saw in the photos that like the neighbor next door has the similar thing. Do they also have a deck underneath their second story addition?
They do, yeah, they do. Yeah.
That's so interesting. Look at that.
So
Yours isn't going to be quite scaled that size.
A little
either.
different, yeah,
we're
but.
quite a bit
so-
smaller. We're tucking into the roof
Yeah.
line, we're tucking in the corners, and that first floor in that area is the garage. So there really was no good way to access additional
Right.
square footage
Oh, I see.
behind the garage without going outside and back in again.
Right, or with
Yeah.
really disturbing what was there.
Yeah.
So what's the thing for like, the thinking for underneath the second story, what's that patio space, that deck space gonna be used for underneath, or, I guess I'm just curious.
Well, it's actually existing, so that the
Right.
current deck extends behind the garage now.
Okay.
And then we're adding a bit out to
Right.
the east.
Okay.
So essentially, it's it's a way to get up to the deck from the driveway.
Okay.
And then walk around and get to the sunny part of the deck that's about 7.5 feet beyond the addition.
Right.
But also a nice place to catch shade.
Okay, yeah, I guess that was my question, because it looked like you could have, if you wanted to, instead of an L-shaped deck, or just flip the L or whatever, make the extension of the deck not underneath the addition, so.
Yeah, since we're a corner lot, we have the double front setback.
Yeah, you just
So
wanted
the
to be.
front setback, the existing setback actually clips about the front of the garage.
Okay,
So we wouldn't actually be able to build a deck any further to the south without
Okay.
being in the setback.
right,
Yeah.
okay.
So you're leaving.
So we're leaving, we're cutting back about 2.5 feet to free it up from the tree a bit.
Yeah, cool.
To give the tree some room to breathe.
Okay.
Excellent. And then, yeah, obviously that, is it a cedar arborvitae that comes out?
That comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Any more questions? Okay, you can be seated. Thank you.
Thanks.
Moving on to the public hearing, would any members of the public like to speak on this application? Hello.
Took off.
All right, I'll now close the.
It's a great idea.
I'll now close the public hearing portion of the application. Would any commissioner like to make a motion on this application?
I'll make a motion, if I can get to it. I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 263 Crest, a contributing property in the Old West Side Historic District, to construct a raised second-floor addition, reconfigure and expand an existing deck, and reconfigure windows on a modern addition on the condition that all new windows are true divided lights or have applied interior and exterior muttons with spacers between, and are wood or clad wood. As conditioned, the work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, materials, and relationship to the house and the surrounding area, and meets the City of Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines for all additions, and the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation, and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings. In particular, standards 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for new additions in district or neighborhood setting.
Support.
Seconded by Commissioner White. Is there any discussion on the motion?
I feel like it meets the standards. I do think it's just a little unusual, the design, but then, of course, their neighbor is a precedent for this. But it's a corner lot, but I do think it meets the standards.
Me too. I agree. If there is no more further discussion, are we ready for a vote? All those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. All those and not in favor, please say no. All right, the motion carries. Your application has been approved, and you may now apply for any city-required permits before beginning your work. City staff will review all permits for consistency with the application approved here today. Thank you. All right. On to our next agenda item, new business. Is there any new business today? All right, approval of minutes, and I don't believe we have any minutes this month. So moving on to
Board of Commissioners.
reports from commissioners. Do any commissioners have any reports to present? Being there's no reports, we'll move on to assignments. Commissioners who are willing to serve on next month's review committee, which will meet, I'll have to look at that up.
December 10th. December 10th is the
December
review.
Is the meeting?
No, is the
review.
Monday review.
Okay. Yeah, so we don't have all the commissioners here
Right.
at this moment, so I think that that can be up for, we can take care of that later.
Yeah.
Does that sound all right, guys?
Yes.
That's fine.
Okay. We'll make a note to staff to confirm that. Any reports from staff? Review her staff activities for the month of October.
That looks good.
Everything looks good to me as well.
No questions here.
On to our concerns of commissioners. Is there any concerns from commissioners this month? No? All right, moving on to communications. Any communications to the Historic Commission tonight? No. All right, then I call for adjournment of the November 15th Ann Arbor Historic District Commission meeting. Thank you.
Very nicely done, Commissioner.
Well done.